Hey, darling, I need you to handle something important this weekend, Grace's husband announced one morning. You need to help Mum pack up her belongings to move to the house in the countryside. What house? Grace asked, puzzled. And why is she moving there? Were you even listening? Roy said. I told you about this. Mum inherited a house in the countryside from a relative. It's a lovely place with a plot of land, a garden, and everything she needs. Didn't she tell you she'd been wanting to move there for some time? Well, she probably forgot, but now she's finally decided to do it, so you'll need to go help her pack and move her things. It's not far. I can't go because I have a lot of work. Grace sighed. Lately, her husband always seemed to be overwhelmed with work. Grace herself worked as a surgical nurse in a hospital, a demanding and stressful job, and she had been feeling exhausted lately. She had been looking forward to finally relaxing this weekend, but she also respected her mother-in-law and didn't want to refuse her request. After all, many elderly people dream of moving to the countryside, and Isabella was probably happy to be able to live in the fresh air. Therefore, the following weekend, Grace went to her mother-in-law's apartment to help her pack. So, ready to become a rural resident? She asked cheerfully. Yes, dear, Isabella sighed, not sounding cheerful at all. Well, what can you do? Many people dream of this, and my dream has suddenly come true. She sighed again. Won't you be bored living alone out there? Grace asked, surprised by Isabella's mood and the thought that suddenly popped into her head. Living in the countryside could indeed be difficult for someone not used to it. Well, what can I do now? Her mother-in-law replied. I've decided to go, so I have to. After all, it's not that far from the city. If I get lonely, I'll come visit. I hope you'll come see me too. Of course, we'd be happy to, Grace said. And so all the things were packed, a taxi was called, and they set off to the suburbs, to the very village where Isabella was going to live. Grace's surprise only grew. The house wasn't in a good condition, and the plot was nice, but it had to be heated with wood. Would Isabella, who had lived her entire life in the city, be able to handle this? Grace tried to ask, but her mother-in-law answered evasively and didn't seem particularly happy about the move. All right, Grace, go home and rest. It's your day off after all, she said. Thank you for your help, but I can manage from here. The woman started arranging her belongings, but Grace had time to notice tears glistening in her mother-in-law's eyes, and they were clearly not tears of joy. She wanted to ask a few more questions, but she didn't dare. Why upset her mother-in-law further? Maybe Isabella was just overwhelmed by the change, and everyone gets a little sad when leaving a familiar place, especially at her age. The place was beautiful, and there were neighbours, so she would probably get used to it. But Grace decided to talk to Roy about it. Why had his mother suddenly decided to move to the countryside? Maybe he knew something. Roy, of course, knew exactly why, though he hadn't told her the real reason. The truth was, he wanted to sell his mother's apartment to cover up a scam he pulled at work for his mistress. Enchanting Sabrina was nothing like humble Grace. She was young, beautiful, demanding, and keeping her happy was costly. Roy was utterly consumed by his new feelings and was literally willing to go to any lengths for his new obsession. As a supply manager at his firm, he had access to funds, and when Sabrina demanded a new dress, jewellery, or some other luxury, how could he refuse? He had been confident that he would somehow miraculously replace the missing money, but time passed and the expenses only mounted. Soon Roy realised that the only way to escape the repercussions of his actions was to sell his mother's apartment. The funds would cover the shortfall and allow him to buy more gifts for his beloved. So he made up a story for his mother that he had wanted very much to please her and his wife with a trip to the Maldives, a Cartier ring and a new car. He needed money for all this, so he thought of nothing better than to try to win a bet on a no-holds-barred fight. But he lost, and now the local gang has put him on the meter. Now he owes a gigantic interest, and if he doesn't pay on time, something terrible will be done to him. He may even disappear forever. Serious people are not to be trifled with. Even if she discovered his plot, Roy believed she would eventually forgive him. After all, a mother's love is unconditional. He was quite pleased with his own cleverness, as he thought everything through so meticulously. I tricked my mother, I deceived my wife, and of course, I'll outsmart my boss too. He thought, proud of his tricky intelligence. What he didn't know was that his boss had long suspected that company funds were being embezzled and had decided to conduct a thorough but secret audit. So he hired an experienced private investigator to find out whose pocket the missing money was going into. Brett was a well-experienced investigator, well-versed in financial matters and all the latest surveillance methods. From the very beginning, as soon as he started the case, he suspected Roy, as the supply manager had both the opportunity to steal and to cover it up. However, not having enough evidence, the detective did not tell anyone about his suspicions and decided to keep a closer eye on the suspect. This was not too difficult, as the thief was not only cunning, but also very careless. Brett was used to any human frailty, but he still was horrified, not only by the fact that Roy was brazenly stealing the firm's money, but also by his plan to rob his own mother. Brett himself was a relatively young man, but had been through a lot. Family values were critical to him. Not long ago he had lost his mother, who had died from a severe illness, and soon after that he divorced his wife. All the quarrels between them started because his wife did not want to help his sick mother, and then she decided to leave, leaving him alone with his grief and little daughter. It's strange how such vile people always find victims, he pondered, driving his car to his client's office. Of course, I'll report my client about his subordinate's deeds, but it would also be good to warn those unfortunate women. They probably believe Roy. It is just horrible that these women live with him, trust him, and don't know what a surprise he has for them. Of course, I can't interfere in someone else's family life, but... Unfortunately, the detective couldn't finish his thought. It was spring, with its fickle weather, sometimes warm, sometimes suddenly frosty. The road was slippery. Brett lost control of his car and was seriously injured. On that very day, Grace was on duty in the emergency department, where the driver with a severe injury was brought. When she took off his jacket, the bugging device fell out of the pocket. The nurse had no idea what it was and just set it aside. There was no time to deal with personal belongings. Only when the doctors took the patient away did she remember the fallen item and wanted to put it back in its place, but she accidentally pressed something and the gadget turned on. Grace listened in astonishment as she heard her husband's voice. "Everything's under control, darling. I've handled it. My mum didn't suspect anything," she heard. "So you don't have to worry about any money anymore." A demanding female voice responded. "Well, Roy, you've been saying that for a while, but the problems aren't getting any smaller." "Oh, come on. Your boy did everything right, so you can be proud of me. And rest assured, we'll be incredibly rich soon," Roy said cheerfully. Grace quickly turned off the device, as she was called to assist with the surgery. She took a few deep breaths to calm her nerves, her hands shaking slightly from what she had heard. What did all this mean? Though there was no time to think about it now. She had to assist with the surgery. The woman tried to push her personal problems out of her mind. "I'll find out everything when the patient wakes up," she thought. When the man was transferred to a regular room the next day, the first person he saw when he regained consciousness was Grace. "Don't worry, you're fine," the nurse said. "Your life and health are no longer in danger." "Thank you," he replied. "How long have I been here? And also, please tell me if all the things I had with me, documents, wallet, various devices, are okay?" "You're worried about that?" Grace smiled. "Everything's fine. But there's one device I really want to ask you about. No, don't think anything bad. I didn't mean to spy. I accidentally pressed something while trying to put the device in your pocket. It turned on and I heard my husband's voice." Now it was Brett's turn to look embarrassed, but quickly calming down, he told her the truth. "Is this all true?" Grace asked, her voice trembling. The detective's face showed genuine sympathy. He nodded. Grace didn't want to believe this man. Maybe he was mistaken or deliberately deceiving her. To find out, Grace decided to talk to her mother-in-law after work and went to the countryside. Isabella's dejected appearance spoke for itself. It was clear that she hadn't come to this house of her own free will and didn't like living there. "Isabella, please tell me everything," Grace pleaded, crying. "My head is spinning." "Grace, I didn't want to tell you. Roy asked me not to upset you," his mother-in-law admitted, and told her daughter-in-law all the story Roy had made up. "Isabella, but it's all fake. Roy decided to sell your apartment because of his mistress and his scam at work." Grace could no longer hold back her tears. "What?" Isabella gasped. "I don't know anything about a mistress or any scam." Isabella was far from being the compliant mother who would cater to all her son's whims. Yes, she could help him in a difficult situation, but not like this. Isabella resolutely began to pack her things. "Don't cry, Grace," said the mother-in-law. "I'll go to the city myself now and give them a piece of my mind. He thought he could kick me out into this wilderness and get rid of me forever. Oh no, Sonny." Returning to the city, the mother found her son's mistress in her apartment and caused a huge scandal, even frightening Sabrina, who quickly called Roy, shocking him with the news that his mother was in the city and knew everything. He also arrived and tried to justify himself somehow, but nothing came of it. The mother was furious, and Roy was completely at a loss. All his plans had gone awry, and he understood perfectly well that his mother could no longer be persuaded, and the sale of her apartment would most likely have to be forgotten. However, the son did not lose hope and kept muttering, "Mum, you understand. People get divorced, marry others." "Marry as much as you want," Isabella shouted at him. "But first, put your wife in the know, and most importantly, what does my apartment have to do with it? Get out of here and give me back the keys, so I don't have to see you or your mistresses on my doorstep again. As for money, live on revenue, and if you can't, either work more or moderate your spending. That's it." Roy, storming back home, confronted Grace, demanding how she dared to meddle in his affairs and even reveal everything to his mother. "What did you expect?" Grace responded calmly. "What luck that I accidentally discovered your mean secrets. At least I saved Isabella's apartment, but our marriage is beyond saving now." Only then did Roy notice she was packing her belongings. "So you're leaving too? Probably for your lover? You've had an escape plan ready for a while, and now you're blaming me." Grace just laughed in his face, hearing this weak attempt to pass his blame on her. "I'm going to my grandmother's house. She had left me long ago. I don't want to see you any more." So, Grace moved to the village an hour away from the city, but she kept working at the hospital. She had to take care of the detective a lot, and he always thanked her, assuring her that he was getting better much faster with her help. "You're better than any doctor or medicine," the man would say, squeezing her hand. "And really, I'm getting better faster than the doctors predicted." When Brett was finally discharged, he reported to Roy's boss about his employees' scams. The head of the company was furious. He called Roy and demanded compensation for all the damages. Roy rushed to his mother, begging her to save him from criminal responsibility, but Isabella was adamant. "Oh no, son. If you told me about this right away, we could have thought of something. But after what you did, you'll have to answer for your own mistakes. Take a loan to cover all the money. Ask your mistress to help you. Whatever." As for Grace, Roy's troubles interested her even less. She was starting a new life. She finally divorced, and her friendship with Brett, and eventually their relationship, continued to grow. She learned that he was also divorced, but not single. He was raising a little daughter. Grace began visiting them, playing with Aria and spending time with her. Soon, she started inviting them to spend weekends with her in the countryside. "But how long are you going to get to work in the city? It's quite far from your new home," Brett asked once. Grace smiled. "I'm already planning to leave the hospital. Local authorities have already promised to hire me in the clinic in the large village nearby." "Dad, let's move here too. To Grace. Forever," Aria suggested. "It's so great here. I've even made friends. And not just with kids, but with animals too." Grace and Brett exchanged glances and laughed. Those words solved one of their problems. They had recently confessed their love for each other and wanted to get married, but they were afraid that Aria might be against it. But as it turned out, she had been hoping for her father and Aunt Grace to get together for a long time. Soon they got married and lived happily as a family, gradually putting all their troubles behind them.